Hello, I am Bailey,
And I'm Momi,
and this is Intro.
and this is Podcast.
So who's choosing
Okay.
first?
I am, because you chose twice last time.
Sweet, go ahead.
Let's. Well, some of these are like good segues into my topics as well.
Okay.
Let's go for like a neutral one though. Let's go with dreams.
Okay, dreams. So this was one that was more... I'm more interested in what you think about it than what I think about it. I know, I was thinking to the Hello Internet conversations about the vapidity of dreams, and to me, I'm not a person who dreams very much, but I like dreams, and I think dreams are interesting. So really, I wanted to know what you thought.
Well, I mean, for me, what I dream is usually stuff that I generally think about during that day.
Mm-hmm.
Like today, I had like this dream where it was really fucking weird because I was like traveling because I was thinking about traveling a lot lately
Mm-hmm.
because I'm planning to travel to like Georgia and Armenia on like Easter. So I was thinking about traveling, and I was like, I don't know, like teleporting around a lot all over the world in like places I have been to. And I went to like this weird, like in my mind, twisted version of the Vatican City where everything was like not the correct size. And then I went in like outside of Vatican City because apparently I can teleport, but now I was going to like get a plane ticket to get back home.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I just randomly found like two people I knew from like middle school because I was thinking about like this guy I know from middle school is like the only guy from middle school that I still talk with.
Mm-hmm.
And then I woke up. I probably dreamt like a bunch more times during that night, but this is the only time I think I remember. Like, this is basically what dreams are for me, just things that I was thinking of during the day that are just rearranged to make no sense.
Do you think there's any sense in them? Do you think there's anything below?
I mean, yeah, because they're based on real thoughts that I had. Like, they are just the brain redoing everything that I need to remember from this day. That, like, the brain is like looking at what did you do today that feels like you should remember for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like making those, like, it's like redoing, it's like replaying those memories over and over again so that they get imprinted more into your brain.
But then why
So
do you
that
think
would
it
remember
replays them
better.
so loosely?
I don't think it does. I think it's just that it replaced them correctly, but because of, like, I don't know, this gets into like what even is like our like consciousness and our perception of our inner thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is the relationship between our perception and our inner thoughts?
Sure.
Like, how does one get into the other?
Mm-hmm.
So that's something we don't know, and I have no idea. But it's such a concrete relationship for me for dreams and things. Especially after I learned that this is how dreams work from the internet.
Mm-hmm.
I like tried to like remember my dreams and think, does this have anything to do with what I was doing? I guess it does. I guess I was thinking about this, and then I guess this is why I had like a school dream, because I was like worried about school or something.
Sure.
And stuff like that.
But my question is, they may be accurate in some sense, but they are not exact replications of what happened. So why is there change?
I don't know. Like I said, that's there's some incongruity, I guess, between what we are thinking in the back of our minds, like what our brain does, without our perception of it and our perception, right?
Yeah.
I guess something gets lost in that transition.
So,
Especially since with like all of the chemicals you have in your brains when you're sleeping and like in your entire body, to like make you paralyzed and shit like that, right?
so
Like, who knows?
this is a slight tangent, but I think it's related. So I've personally found that, I do talk therapy once a week. And I found in these, not necessarily dreams, but sometimes I will just talk imagistically. I'll just close my eyes and say what I see and go through that. It's kind of a waking dream, I just let the subconscious pour out. And I often find there are things in those images that I don't know yet. Like, there's something in the subconscious re-rendering of things that actually has more information than I previously had, and I wonder if that does have a relation to dreams, or is this a totally separate thing. But I feel like there are things you can know without knowing that you know them. The subconscious holds a lot of knowledge, maybe wisdom, I'm not sure, but there's something, from my experience, deeper in that. Have you ever done talk therapy or anything like that?
Thought like a lucid dream.
Like an awake
Is
dream.
what you mean? Yeah. I try to do that. Like, I put some music on, which kind of keeps me awake, and then I try to go to sleep, and so it gets to a mix where I'm like thinking. I basically have dreams, but like the music keeps me from actually being unconscious. Lately, I haven't been able to do that anymore, so, because I just go to sleep immediately. And, like, music no longer manages to keep me awake. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. It's like, my favorite stuff like this is actually fever dreams, because when I have fever dreams, I'm always like kind of awake. I never feel like I'm actually sleeping.
Right.
Right, but the result of that is that all of my dreams are just me trying to solve like impossible nonsensical puzzles that the rules aren't like even like I don't even know. It's like trying to solve like a puzzle game that you don't even know the rules of. Right? That's like always, it's like really abstract like puzzle game that I'm trying to solve, but I don't even know what I need to do to solve, and just doing things, and I'm assuming, oh, this is not working. It's always so frustrating. There's like the most frustrating dreams ever. I hate fever dreams so much.
I see. I've never had a fever dream. The closest I've had is I've had a few bouts of sleep paralysis, which kind of has a similar effect. I find it so interesting. Like, when I first had it, I didn't know what it was. I'd never heard of it, and so you look it up, and it's kind of interesting how consistent they are. How, like, there's a lot of things that humans experience, but there are a few that are so consistent across all people, especially something so strange. I wonder, there must be some kind of like primal circuit that's latching into.
Like someone standing on top of you?
Yeah. And the way the figure looks, there's a lot of stuff that's, and kind of the lighting. There's a movie, I don't remember what it's called, but it has some recreations, like some, dramatic recreations of what it looks like, and they're super, accurate. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's probably like something like very basic.
Yeah.
that like the brain turns to when it doesn't understand what is happening. So there's probably like something like I don't know. I've never had this dream, so I don't even know if sorry, not dream. I never had sleep paralysis, so I don't know what it actually looks like and stuff like that. I just know descriptions like this. There's probably like if you can't move and the brain doesn't know why, there's probably like someone on top of you, because it doesn't seem to be like the brain. Like the sleep paralysis is like the brain thinks that you should be awake by now, but the body has not yet like reacted
Yeah.
to the fact that you're asleep.
Sure.
So the brain is like, wait, why would I be paralyzed? So I did give the body the order to like stop the sleep paralysis, like stop being paralyzed because I'm no longer asleep, right? So I can't be paralyzed because of that. I can't. It's not a toxin because if it was a toxin I would know. So it's not a toxin. It must be something like stopping me to move like physically, right? So it just.
It's interesting though that
the
the figure, the kind of creature that comes out is always humanoid. I find that interesting. Why we would assume that? That seems a strange thing to assume. Maybe not. Maybe if you're in danger at night, it's safe to assume it's a person. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's like maybe it's like the fact that because of maybe this is not such a base thing. Maybe this is just because we live in society and everything around us is humans, that we would assume that if someone is holding us down, that would be a human.
Perhaps, yeah.
Because it can't be something like non-human, because like that would probably cause hurt to your body. Like it would be probably crushing your body, and the body doesn't say that it's crushed. There's no hurting anywhere, so brain really doesn't know what's happening. And the only thing that could have the precision to hold you down but not affect your body in any hurtful manner would be like a human or an animal, and the most known animal we know is human because they're all around us.
And maybe the most dangerous animal, you know.
Maybe.
In modern life, for sure.
I've had some friends who said that they had sleep paralysis. It's weird because I never had this. I've had like insomnias. I've had like I've actually had people tell me that I would actually do stuff and like during the night. Like I remember one time when my parents, I was sleeping like in the US on like a couch bed. And I was sleeping there because like people were off in the actual room that I usually was sleeping in, and I couldn't sleep there. And someone like came to me and said, "Okay, now you can go to the other room." And I just got up and went to the other one and went to sleep. I never remember that. I was asleep while doing that.
Yeah, quite a few people in my family have that. It's very strange because you can respond and like have a conversation almost. It's bizarre.
Yeah, I talked during that time. I said, "Yeah, okay, I'll go," and then I went, and then I was asleep during that time. I don't have any memory of that.
Yeah.
Or maybe I wasn't asleep. I just don't have any memory of it, which like brings us to last podcast's discussion of if you don't have memory of something, were you conscious?
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Okay, I think that's have you got anything else to add? I think that's pretty good.
No, not really.
Sweet. Okay, now I have to choose one of yours.
Yeah, you do.
There's some intriguing ones, let me think.
Alright.
So I'm interested in this one because I don't know what it means. Is our relationship parasocial. I don't know that.
Oh my
word.
god! I'm so glad you chose that one. It's the last one I put there, and and I don't know either. Like that's why it's a question, right? So you know what a parasocial relationship?
No, I don't
is,
even
right?
know what that is.
Okay, so a parasocial relationship is like a relationship that's like with a person, like the relationship you have with a famous YouTuber or a famous star, right?
Yeah.
That's a parasocial relationship because you
Okay.
feel socially linked to that person, but that person is not necessarily even know you. And even if they do know you and they like talk to you in the comment, it's like a weird relationship, right? That doesn't go both ways.
Yeah.
And I like wonder is like our relationship like even like even though we talk on the internet, like it feels like it's not an actual relationship. Like I started this line of thinking when I was listening to Wara's latest Let's Play, and I realized, wait, I never knew that Wara was like how Wara met Herpes, right? And when he started explaining it, like I never asked, I never knew, which started making me think like my relationship with Wara is weird. Because it started as a relationship that like I knew him. It started as a parasocial relationship, my relationship with Wara.
Right.
Because I knew him, but he didn't know me. Like I knew him from the podcast that he was making on Digiboys.
Yeah, that one.
Right? And I also pretty much like listened to your videos before I actually like talked to you properly. And it feels like a weird relationship. Like, what's your opinion on this?
Yeah, that's interesting because I think there is something fundamentally different about relationships through the internet. And there's something even more so in this case because it's part of a community, a group. So a lot of our experience of one another is not necessarily directly interacting, but it's seeing us interact with other people. So
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, like how Herpes constantly looks at the Discord, even though it like he isn't part of any conversation. He can just always like look into those conversations as a parasocial part of it.
Yeah, and so what that makes me think is, what is the meaningful difference when you meet in person? So to go back to you, because obviously you met Walter in person last year. What was the was there a notable difference, or do you think there was some continuity of that parasocial relationship, even though you'd met? I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, well, first of all, there definitely was, because, well, not only was I talking to Wara, but I was living with Wara, so that means that our living patterns would have to clash, like, immediately, pretty much.
Yeah.
It wasn't really a problem, like we didn't have any problems with that, and I think I'm a pretty alright guest. Like, I can adapt to someone else's living pattern if they ask me to, if I'm their guest. But it, first of all, other than that, we were actually, like, way more awkward, like, immediately, like, all four of us. Even though we knew each other, it just felt like a different type of relationship that we were having now that we were actually all like together. And this is like my classic line of, no one is actually someone can only be your friend once you are able to punch them in the nose. Like, that is like, the punching in the nose is not what actually makes you friend, but the ability,
I get
yeah, right, everything that it implies, the ability to punch someone in the nose is what makes them your friend. It's like, okay, like think of Mickey, like Mickey's stopwatch, right? it's so weird because he was in a community with us in the Digicord, and then we pretty much stopped going there, and he became like he resulted in having a parasocial relationship with like Sky and Fargo and me and Harpus, the people and probably other people because I don't know who has been on Sky's streams, but he was always on those streams, and it was weird because he was kind of having a parasocial relationship like that, where he wasn't able to participate, but we all knew that it was him, and he couldn't actually participate in the server, but he was like a fan of the server, like it had a parasocial relationship with the server. It feels so weird, this weird web of relationships.
It's interesting.
It feels real, but it feels like you're not part of it at the same time.
It's interesting because a lot of people in our Discord are quite open about themselves and their problems, in a way that I suspect would not be so much the case in, a more verbal context or with friends or family or whatever. And what that, it's interesting because in some way that seems like, you can be more yourself, so to speak. And yet there's something about inhibition and barriers that creates the deeper connection in a way. It's like, it's easy to be open when no one's looking at you, but to be able to, again, it's like the punching in the nose thing. The act of being able to be open with someone in person is a much more meaningful relationship point, I guess. So in a way, it's almost easier. You almost get to skip some stuff, and maybe that makes it feel less deep, because in some ways I have relationships with people on the server on an individual basis, that's some more than others, but I also have a kind of meta relationship with the server as a whole, and some people it's almost exclusively that. I think of them as an extension of the server almost, and I'm just not sure what to make of it. It's very interesting. It is very different. We're clearly not wired for this strange long-term communication,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
My god, you just hit the nail on the head and how I was thinking. Like, this is the thing. Meeting someone in real life, one of your friends or an acquaintance or anything, that is sort of like an event, right? You meet them, you spend time with them, and during that spending time with them, the main thing that you're thinking about is the spending of time with that person. Whereas the server is like always there on like your computer or on your phone or something. And it's just a constant presence, and it's always there for you. It in some way it feels like it's always in the back of your mind, and it never is like the thing that I am right now going, like, you're never gonna be like, I'm gonna meet with the server right now, I'm gonna go and post on the server right now.
Yeah.
And this portion of time is all about socializing on the server.
You just kind of find yourself there.
Yeah, you just sort of like find yourself there. Yeah, you just sort of check it sometimes, and then sometimes you're like, I guess I spent like an hour writing on this server, but I didn't feel like I was actually spending time in the server. It felt like I was just it was just it's like any other social media, just checking something on the internet, and it ended up putting me in a huge rabbit hole.
I wonder if that makes the difference, because I talk to people more on the server than I do alone, individually. And so I wonder if that makes a meaningful difference, or it's still, if the nature of it is still fundamental. Like if you just talk to someone, I think part of it is that calling is the next step. Calling is something you usually do just.
Yeah.
Or
like
at
what
least,
we're doing right now.
Yeah. And this even more so, because we're actually, the conversation is very deeply the point, I can't, You know,
Yeah.
usually when I go in a call, I'll be playing like a video game or something.
Yeah. Like the way Sky or Wada act in voice chat, where it's just sort of like a thing to keep their mind occupied. Or like Chappie, who literally says that VC is her podcast.
Yeah, I mean,
It's like an extra thing in the background.
I think that makes Cappy's relationship to us even more
Very parasocial.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, this is a really interesting topic of how the internet works, but
and I think we're still figuring it out. You know, the other day I was in the bookstore and I saw a book that said that was called something like, I don't know, "You've Been Zucked" or something. And it's like I think we're actually at that stage right now with all the Facebook hearings and the Me Too stuff and the kind of post Me Too that I think we're in now, where the limits and the edges of the internet are really being pushed, and we're starting to see, okay, this is something more complex and something that has a greater impact than, you know, I remember making my first Facebook account and it just felt like nothing, but really it was a massive change to the nature of relationships.
Yeah, I don't feel like I have a good enough grasp over the science of relationships to like give a more in-depth idea about this. I just find it really interesting.
For sure. I think scientists fully don't know what this is, right? Because it's only been happening for like 10 years.
Yeah.
There's still a lot we've got to figure out. And it seems culturally we've become more interested in it in the last few years.
Yeah. So Bailey, when are we gonna meet then? To not have a parasocial relationship anymore.
Aren't you coming with everyone else who's coming to London?
I'm not coming to London, no.
It'll happen.
Why don't you come here? It would be so much cheaper than me going to London.
On the one hand, yes, but on the other hand, you know, I personally like going to only first world countries.
Oh, fuck off. Well, that's gonna change once Brexit happens.
Well, we'll see.
Alright, I think that's enough for that topic. Let's try like a fun one from yours, because you have a lot of fun ones. I have a lot of like, I don't even know what mine are. Let's go with masculinity. Let's talk about that.
So, I think this is a very interesting topic right now, because there's clearly a lot of questions being had about the concept of the ideal male, or of the male goal, let's say. That's how I define masculinity. It's the ideal in which people of this gender should aim to. What's a good man? You know, and traditionally that has to do with strength, that has to do with... You see, I think we don't understand it that well. The hero character, the one who protects and provides, you know. And obviously recently there was a big hubbub about this with the Gillette ad, which implied that this idea has failed, I suppose. I would say is the thesis of the ad. And I wonder if... So is the question is do we need a new conception of masculinity? Does it need to be rebuilt? Does it need to be destroyed? You know, is there is that distinguishing between genders as different types of people something that's out of date, or is it being misunderstood? I think it could be any of those three things, and I'll hand it over to you to tell me what you think of this.
I think this is kind of a fake problem.
Okay.
I don't think that masculinity has a problem,
Mm-hmm.
or like masculinity should be destroyed. It's just that masculinity and femininity were meant to be sort of cultural, but sort of also evolution based.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck is the word? Aspects of a personality that people should strive to achieve, because it both in culture and because of the body differences, it makes more sense for a man or a woman to be those things, and it makes them more successful either in their specific culture or in nature. But that also meant that by saying that those are masculine and those are feminine, with time, because of culture, this also resulted in a repulsion of both sides of traits that were seen as the other side, right? So that is the actual problem. The fact that some traits are feminine or masculine, those traits that are good, they're good in both feminine and masculine. It's just that the problem is the fact that they are missing from the others, right? I think the solution would be that all women should be more like men and all men should be more like women. There should be a middle ground where all the good parts of both masculinity and femininity should be like as a thing to achieve for anyone, not just for men or for women.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because
culturally,
I agree half. I think you're right about resentment for the traits, but I think that there's been a failure actually on the other end in femininity too, that femininity or women as such want to prove themselves in the basis of masculinity, equal CEOs or movie stars or movie star action heroes, right? Which is fine, but I feel like there's this obsession with they consider that we live in a patriarchal society, which I don't think is particularly true, but we can get to that another time. But they seem to be so embedded in that, more so than anyone else, that they actually fetishize the masculinity side and diminish the femininity side, so I think that's an interesting feminism hasn't actually been good for feminine traits in a way.
I guess no. Like good feminism would probably advertise women that are very womanly as well, that do not choose to be in any way part of any masculine idea.
I just don't think that's happening right now too much.
Yeah. Especially like in action heroes, where you see like even all women that are heroes are like masculine, like say like the girl from the Hunger Games, right? She's a very masculine character, even though she's a woman. And all women that are like that are like supposed to be the heroes, they are very masculine traits. Whereas men that are supposed to be the villains, like Cersei's from 300, right? They are very, very effeminate, right? That's also like kind of the evil gay, right?
Yeah.
That's also, but I think that's not really a thing about homophobia, but really about considering because our very base stories are very centered about masculine ideals, like honor. Honor is generally a very masculine ideal because it's about not using all of the everything you have at your disposal to win, but instead meeting your opponent on a level ground and winning in that way, right? Whereas the women ideal would be to use everything at your disposal to win, because the stuff at their disposal has both historically, culturally, and and like physically is less than what men have.
Sure.
right? So that in that way, being shifty and unhonorable is a very feminine trait. And in some ways, being honorable is kind of dumb. Like
Sure.
Right? I constantly like play games and I try to cheat them in games, right? Because I don't think that, like, I think that finding the weak point in the game and hitting there rather than just throwing yourself at a wall and until it breaks or you break, right? That like being smarter about it makes it much more satisfying, even if that being smarter meant that you had like a map in front of you to like figure stuff out.
It's interesting actually,
internet,
because
right?
I've been actually doing the opposite of that recently. I've been playing on the SNES Classic Mini, and I've been playing Mario World, and I've been trying to beat the game without using any of these guides or online things. I wanted to experience it as it was experienced, you know, back when it came out.
Oh man, not even like save state?
No,
Wow.
because
I beat those without using any guides or anything, but like with using save states though.
No, I'm trying to go the do it as raw as possible, because to me, a game is collaborative, and both collaborative with if you're playing with someone else, but also collaborative with the game. And if you get what you want, the developer, I trust the developers to know the best things about their own game, which might be wrong, which might be naive, but I feel like trying to break a game it's short term. You feel the satisfaction of having, say in like Breath of the Wild, you know, you can get certain equipment that just makes you like absurd, and on one level that's super fun, but then over time it's not a very long-term stable level of enjoyment unless you can break it in a new way, because the essential challenge, the game segment, kind of dies. And so to me, I really feel it's important to join in, to play fair with even with an inanimate game, which is interesting.
So here's like where in this metaphor I find the middle ground, right? Where you can be both honorable but dishonorable at the same time. For me, that's speedrunners, which I find very fun compared to the very boring competitive players, which I cannot stand. Like, I find them inherently boring as people that they're playing video games competitively, or even athletes or anything.
Sure,
like
they
that.
are kind of blank people.
Yeah, but the speedrunners are interesting because they both have rules, like playing the video game. Like, they have different variations of a speedrun of a video game with sometimes like with glitches, but with no going out of bounds. So that is somewhat honorable because there is a point to playing the game like this. You want to test yourself specifically in this, but without doing everything you can. But no matter how many rules you put on yourself, there's always like something else like you can do or take advantage of that like saves a couple of seconds, right? It's never just about doing it as perfect, unless every single thing about it has been found, and at that point it is just about doing it as perfect as possible. But that aspect of finding this new glitch or taking advantage of this new glitch, or like maybe you take advantage of the fact that this many people will try this glitch, but they might not succeed in it because it's so hard to do, so you just ignore it completely. Stuff like that is so fun because it incorporates both feminine ideals and masculine ideals, right?
That's super interesting.
That is like my like example. I think that's what we should eventually do, incorporate both of them into our hero. That's what it should be.
So do you think this is we're currently in a stage of somewhere in between that transition, that we're starting to figure out that it has to change but haven't figured out how necessarily?
Well, I feel like people are stupid.
Okay.
That's just something that it's kind of hard to fix, and especially like people, whenever you give them like a sort of competition like this, which is women versus men, they tend to like antagonize rather than compromise.
Right.
And it's so hard to like actually like not only make the change, but make people try to make a change.
I see.
Because everyone will just immediately do what the stupid brain tells them to do and antagonize the opposing faction rather than try to find a compromise, because the point of it is that they're both bad in parts of our new society, but you would usually see the part that you are in less bad.
The tribalism,
So
right?
yeah, tribalism would happen. So yeah, tribalism is just a force that is so hard to like. That is the problem. In order to even think about having such a change, we need to solve tribalism. It is something that I don't even think can be solved. So I don't know.
But how? I think maybe I agree. Tribalism is a very, very deep problem. Is the solution to redraw the boundaries as well as humanly possible?
Okay, so here's the thing. In modern society, I think that modern society would value more the feminine aspects of personality rather than the masculine aspects. I think the masculine aspects are less relevant to how current society works.
Okay.
Which I think over time would result in the corruption of the masculine traits, or maybe even having them thrown away altogether, which I think is maybe a bad thing, sad, but I think that's the future, I guess, because society is just so like, I know this sounds like it's false, but like if you look at what feminine traits are and what is necessary to succeed in society, it's usually feminine traits. Feminine traits are more useful. Well, what is like so for example, the masculine trait of being able to defeat your enemies in honorable combat and we're using force, that's generally a masculine trait, and it's also reinforced by biology, since men are easily more easily angered, and their anger actually like helps their body in a fight, right? Whereas women don't really have that. So women mode of dealing with conflict is much more social based. It had to be learned, right? Because they weren't biologically supposed to be the ones to deal with conflict. So the male way of dealing with conflict, not only does not work in a society, because now you're supposed to put all of your conflict solutions aside and try to solve them using the police, like someone else's force, right?
Right.
So your own force is not like, even if you use it, that is disruptive to the system. Whereas the female solution and the female dishonorability is much more useful, and also women are generally more social. They are like culturally and biologically bred to be more social
Sure.
than men. Also, like what the fuck is it called? What the fuck is it called when you only have one mating partner
Monogamous.
instead of more? Monogamy. There it is. Thank you. It was on the tip of my tongue. So monogamy is inherently a female concept that was enforced, right? Because the point, like, this is an old argument, like the point of a male in any species is because they don't get pregnant and they create a lot of sperm. The point of them is to try to impregnate as many women as possible. But the point of the women is because they get pregnant and they don't create as many eggs, they need to be much more conservative with with sex.
Sure.
So that results that they try to choose only one partner and the best partner, right? So
Yeah, that's
and
really
men are less
interesting.
picky because they're like their point is that they're trying to fuck everything they see.
And that very much rings true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I never thought of it that way, as the triumphs of the feminine over the masculine are a nature of society now. Of the,
Yeah.
you know, I would say ironically, the society that was built by that masculine half.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. So yeah, maybe this is an inherent drive. I think personally I have a little more. Do I have more faith in people? I'm just not as deterministic, I guess. I think things can change, but I think you make a very good point, and I think.
Yeah, it's what I'm saying is because feminine traits are more powerful in the current state of the society. If there is gonna be like a fight between those tribes instead of a compromise, the masculinity side is just gonna lose, as we see is losing currently.
So it'd be interesting to see if you're right, and I think you very well may be. The masculine kind of remanifests in a kind of revolutionary, in a tear down, where once people feel like they don't have much to lose, then they are willing to let other people lose a lot. So I wonder if that's the consequence of it, because you can't delete masculinity from the human makeup, because it's been there for forever.
Yeah, the biological parts you can't delete, and that's the problem. Like, okay, so if men get to culturally be more feminine, because that's what, and they have. I mean, many things that men do right now, like extortion and right, and what the fuck is. Like all of those social-based tactics, those are inherently female tactics that we see in like old culture.
Sure.
Right. So those have become more neutral tactics because they're so useful in our current society, and they have been for a very long time. That males have adopted it quite a lot, but in our story, it's still very much a feminine tactic.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But it's also less and less compared to other aspects of femininity and masculinity. Some of them might not even have anything to do with succeeding in society.
Sure.
Like nurture. Nurture is something associated with women, but doesn't really have anything to do with success in society.
Sure. For sure.
Right, so because of that, it wasn't really that. It hasn't become more of a neutral thing. People try to make it more neutral because it's a good thing to have, but they haven't like actually done it. There's some things about the male role model that I feel are very important, like control of feelings, which I feel is like, stoicism, which I feel is usually like misunderstood as being a sociopath that doesn't have any feelings, which is not what it is, but rather than that, it's more like trying to like acting about your feelings as they are excrement, right? Like admitting that you have them, but knowing how to control them and not just go anywhere, right?
Sure.
You don't go shit yourself in the middle of the living room. You'd go to the bathroom, and you should do the same with your sentiments. You don't just go have a fit anywhere. You should like have a fit in front of like a sad movie or something.
Yeah.
Or, I don't know,
Yeah, for sure. It's using emotions when they are appropriate and not when they are not. It's pretty simple. If everyone acted out their most unfiltered emotions at all time, humans are very can be very pathetic little creatures. Very weak, very easy to feel defeated by things. And if we let that, manifest itself, firstly, it's just unwise. Like, from my experience, a lot of negative emotion is about you being convinced, let me try that again. The way to deal with negative emotion isn't to let it have its way with you. It's to control it and realize that you have more strength over it than you realize. That's the way to actually not drown in depression in a lot of ways.
Decompress it in controlled scenarios. Like, go talk to someone about it in like a controlled state and like let it all out. Like, go to a shrink, something like that. if you really can't let go in front of a movie, right? But yeah, like this control of feelings is something that was more useful for men, because men have historically both held more power, were able to damage more, and if they couldn't control that would result in things blowing up in their face back at them, right?
Sure.
So they needed to know how to control that because they had the patriarchy that controlled shit, whereas women didn't need to, which is why now we have the memes of like women that can't control their feelings, right?
Sure.
Like crying women with the ice cream in front of them, and the man that doesn't cry, right? That's why like men don't cry. Well, like men don't cry is kind of an exaggerated thing, and yes, you should maybe cry, but like not like in dumb moments. Try to control it.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Like, don't, like, if say like there's someone who's about to die and you need to help them like right now, and you start crying instead of helping them, that's not useful. Like, even like the idea of just starting crying and helping them, that might not be very useful. You're gonna have tears in your eyes.
Yeah,
it's not useful. It's not good for you. Like, try to control your feelings and then do it another time.
For sure.
Right?
For sure. No, that's a great point.
Right?
Absolutely.
So while boys don't cry might be a bad exaggeration, like you shouldn't just have boys don't cry, the idea of the feminine alternative, which is not controlling your emotions, that's even worse, because it's a lack. It's not an actual female ideal. It's just a lack of a masculine ideal, and that's a part of this corruption of the masculine that I don't like. Because that's the masculine idea that is very good, that we should definitely preserve and expand, but because we have this tribalism and we don't compromise on that, it's just being corrupted, and like people don't like stoicism anymore.
When I wrote this topic, throughout this podcast, what I've learned is that my caricature of you I had before, it's very simplified. You think very different things than I think people in general, including me, would expect, and it's really interesting.
Well, I tried to caricaturize myself as well, because sometimes sometimes I myself have so many conflicting thoughts that even I don't really know what to think. So I try to like, whatever. Now I'll be racist Momi who says
Sure,
fuck
yeah,
the
I've seen this,
Americans, and then I'll be like not racist Momi later and whatever.
Occasionally, you know.
Because I can't be both at the same time, but in my head I am both at the same time. So I don't know. I'm just fucking. I don't know what I think.
Great. I don't think you can wrap it up better than that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, we should finish because it's been 50 minutes,
Yep.
almost an hour actually. Okay, should I end this? Should I start?
Go for it.
I was Momi,
I was Bailey,
and this is outro.
and this was podcast. You should have said this was outro, but it's fine. We'll go.
No, because this is the outro. It wasn't.
Oh,
the
yeah,
outro.
good point.
We are currently within the outro.
Good point.
Yeah, and now it's over.
Bye.